For those of you who are online, we're going to get started in just a moment, so we'll be right with you. Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the public meeting of ANC 4D. My name is Anthony Parati. It's a pleasure to welcome all of you this evening. For those of you who are joining us in person, thank you for coming. And for those of you who are online, thank you for joining us that way. We are a group of neighborhood volunteers. We get together once a month with people in the community to talk about ways that we can make 4D a better neighborhood and a better place to live. So thank you all for joining us. Just to let you all know how the evening will go tonight, the first part of the evening, we'll get through our business items. We have some guest speakers from different agencies here in DC. There will also be an opportunity for members of the public to ask questions or to weigh in on anything toward the end of the meeting. So everyone will have an opportunity to speak up if you have something to say. So we'll definitely make sure that we have time for that. So before we get started, Secretary George, would you like to take roll?
Yes. When I call your name, please indicate whether you're here by saying present. Commissioner Pinckney. Commissioner Abell.
Here.
Commissioner Lucarelli.
Present.
Commissioner Corniatis.
Present.
Commissioner Morensic.
Present.
Commissioner George is here. Commissioner Weigel.
Present.
And Commissioner Parati.
Present, and we have a quorum and can get started. Secretary George circulated an agenda for tonight's meeting. I have a couple of changes, but are there any changes from any of the commissioners or addendums or additions?
I just want to make sure that Mr. Bryant from Streetline is on our agenda. I believe he is. I just want to confirm that.
He is indeed on the agenda.
Thank you.
I would like to request unanimous consent to add a representative from DPW who should be joining us online tonight.
So moved.
Hearing no objections.
Oh, also one more thing. Commissioner Lucarelli and I just participated in a walkthrough of Hamilton and Georgia. So I just want to make sure that's either added to the agenda so that we can briefly discuss it, or if it is already on the agenda, just to keep it there.
Water's coming.
It
Hold
is
on.
not currently on the agenda, but we have a fairly light agenda tonight, so I don't see any reason why we can't add it. Any objections from any commissioners? Hearing none, we will add it to new business under by unanimous consent. I would also seek unanimous consent to approve the consent agenda, which approves adopting the minutes from March and February. Are there any objections to that?
No.
Hearing none, the consent agenda is approved. Next up, we have a treasurer's report from Secretary Cornelius,
You can.
or Treasurer Cornelius. Treasurer, tell us about our finances. How are we doing?
Our finances remain healthy, given the fact that, we're still working through opening up our grant process for the community. So our balance remains $16,353.15. And we look forward to, again, opening up the grant process as well as supporting other community efforts.
Are there any questions for the treasurer from any of the commissioners? Hearing none, we will move on. Yes.
Just ask, we've discussed this at the executive committee meeting, but the application for the grants, posting them online, how are we on that? And would it be helpful to make a motion now to post that?
I believe Secretary George is already working on that. We had a conversation about that today. Secretary George, anything that we should know?
No, nothing. After our conversation, I'm gonna post the application on that Commissioner Lucarelli sent me tonight or tomorrow. Should be up very soon.
Any other questions for the treasurer? All right, hearing none, we will move on to comments from city officials. First, we have Ms. Barbara Rogers from Councilman Louis George's office. Ms. Rogers, are you joining us tonight? You're muted, Ms. Rogers.
All right, can you hear me?
Now we can hear you.
Wonderful. Good evening to everyone under the sound of my voice. I only have a few updates. The first one is about the Petworth Library upgrades. Last week, council member visited the Petworth Library with DCPL leadership and our local library staff to preview the important upgrades that are coming to the library next year through the $1.5 million that we secured in the DC budget. The library already underwent a major renovation in 2009. This project will focus on improvements like reorganizing the library to better meet the needs of children and teens, upgrading the flooring, updating the furniture, maintaining the historic library features, adding a water fountain upstairs, and then there'll be some other improvements. We do want you to know that the DCPL will need to close the library for about 5 months, starting at the end of 2024 or the start of 2025 to renovate the space. So to avoid any unnecessary delays, DCPL will only close the library once it has all the construction materials it needs to do the upgrades quickly. Drug-free zones coming to Ward 4. I know we've all heard about this. Just yesterday, Ward 4 got 4 streets added to the drug-free zone. It's the 900 block of Upshur Street Northwest, 4,000 and 4,100 block of Georgia Avenue Northwest, the 900 block of Shepherd Street Northwest, and then it has the 4,000 block of Kansas. It actually started today and it will go through Monday. Some good news on safety updates. MPD has made several important arrests in robbery cases in our community. On Tuesday, they responded to an attempted robbery on 3rd and Whittier at Tacoma Rec, which resulted in a fatal stabbing. They were able to arrest 2 individuals there. Last week, MPD announced an arrest in the armed robbery that took place last month in the 5,000 block of 8th Street Northwest in Brightwood Park. And last week, an individual was arrested and charged with multiple armed carjackings in Petworth, 16th Street Heights, Brightwood, and Tacoma. So it's always good that we can share a little good news, especially as it relates to public safety. Let's see, just the budget. You all know that this is budget season. However, we do not have an update on the budget. The mayor has not yet submitted her budget, which needs to go to the CFO before it comes to the council. So as soon as we get an update there, we will provide it to you. But we will need you to weigh in on the budget once the dates are finalized. New DC traffic camera website. DDOT has a new dedicated website for its automated traffic enforcement program. So it has an interactive map. So you're interested in finding out, where the cameras are in Ward 4. I would advise you to take a look. I will be taking a look. I'm tired of paying tickets for just a little speeding, but it's a really good website with some good information. And then lastly is about DPR. They have a survey on sport courts. So if you are interested in opportunities, to play basketball, pickleball, tennis, DPR wants you to fill out their survey to shape how DPR utilizes its courts for our community. That's all I have. I encourage you to sign up for our newsletter, which comes out every Friday afternoon. We can also text you the newsletter. All you need to do is just text to 202-286-5268. Thank you all so much for having me.
Thank you, Ms. Rogers. Are there questions from any of the commissioners? Commissioner Corniatis, Commissioner Bell.
Thank you for your presentation. I just I have a couple of questions about the council member's letter to the mayor on the budget. But first, I
yes.
just wanted to voice my opposition to the drug-free zones are coming to our neighborhoods. I want to voice my opposition to those drug-free zones. I believe they are unconstitutional and they would be a danger to our community. But I wanted to ask you about the letter to the mayor that the council member has written. I noticed on there that Kennedy Street is again on her letter, and I want to thank you for your office's work on that. I just wanted to ask what other items in her letter you want to highlight. I know one thing that's on there that I really love is the lead-free, her own bill. She's asking for funding for the lead-free DC work. Is there anything else you want to highlight that was included in her letter to the mayor? I would appreciate it.
Yeah, there is so much in there, and I am actually going to, especially for those online that may have not seen it, I will put, um, the letter, actually in there, and I'm just trying to think off top anything that I think it's a very good letter. As you all know, she will definitely fight for things, for our ward. She will go to bat for the residents of Ward 4. But I think, a big thing for her, as you mentioned, was actually the Petworth library is a baby that she hopes to be, that she can birth at some point. There's a lot of opposition there, but she's hoping. I was just pulling up the letter because I can't remember. So
Ms.
she's
Rogers, sorry to
investing in
interrupt.
housing and health. Yes. Can you hear me?
Ms. Rogers, there's something going on with your camera. I don't know if you want to. Yeah, can you hear us?
Oh, there we go. I'm sorry. All right.
Okay.
So yes. So I just wanted to pull up her letter because there's so much in there, but her basically she's again fighting for 173.2 million to fully fund SNAP through 2027. She is trying to invest in housing, as housing is a human right and must be a priority in our 2025 budget. And one of her big things that she's really pushing for is funds to hire social workers. There's a national shortage, and so she's hoping that she can get some funding in there for social workers. Just glancing through here. But yeah, I will put the link. And of course, investing in our education and our youth is a big thing that she has in her letter. But I will put the link. It's how long is her letter? I think it's about 8 pages. But I will put the link there
Ms.
for
Rogers.
those that are online.
And as a newsletter recipient, I've put the link in there in the chat
Okay,
for
great.
the letter. I appreciate you. And thank you for
Thank
your work
you.
on this.
Any other questions from commissioners?
Good evening, Ms. Rogers. Can you hear me?
Hi, Commissioner CC.
How are you?
I am
Nice to see your
wonderful.
face per usual. I'm I have 2 questions basically. Where are we with 809 Kennedy Street, the air quality, public health issues? Because I was recently there picking up Commissioner Pigney actually, and it seems that the lobby area smells worse than it did when we first inherited, I don't want to say inherited, came upon this problem. And I know that we're working and coordinating with several agencies, but how can we really rectify the situation? Because it's a senior living establishment, rent controlled establishment where, several residents have been affected from a health perspective it's almost going on a year now.
I totally agree. I don't know if his Commissioner Pinckney is on here, but I visited her last week for her birthday, and I totally agree with you. The smell was actually, to me, worse than the last time that I was there. Hopefully you're on the emails. Oscar from our office has actually taken the lead on this. And the last that I email that I received was that the Department of Health was actually meeting with, because the management there said that they had hired a company to help with this smell. So the Department of Health wanted to meet with the people that they hired to get a clear understanding of what is being done and again, what we need to do as soon as possible to mitigate. So hopefully, Commissioner CC, you're on all those emails, and if you're not, I will make sure that you get on those emails.
Yeah, I am. I just wanted to,
Okay.
raise the issue that it's
Sure.
getting worse, not better, and that's extremely concerning for,
Yes.
and Commissioner Pinckney is actually not in attendance due
Oh,
to
okay.
her
Okay.
breathing issues. So it's a
Okay.
big issue.
Yeah.
And my second question, in regards to the budget and hiring of police officers, et cetera. As you probably know, Commissioner Lucarelli and I were part of a group earlier this afternoon at the corner of Hamilton and Georgia. And, I was just wondering, how closely does our council member coordinate with, with the Ward 4 police departments in terms of curbing crime, and so on and so forth?
Yeah, I think she actually has communicates with Lieutenant with Command 11 House really on a regular basis. We get invites to almost every, and we want to coordinate with the commissioners in those areas where these walks occur. I think was the council member at the one at Hamilton?
Yes, she was.
Okay. Okay, I thought it was on her schedule for her to attend. But basically, when we go to those walks, we of course take down any issues that are raised there, follow up with the commander, and then follow up with residents if that is actually required. So she's very involved. Again, I think she and Commander Levenhouse talk weekly about issues in our ward.
Thank you, Ms. Rogers. We appreciate you being here tonight.
All right, thank you.
Next up, we have Mr. Derek Johnson from the mayor's office. Mr. Johnson.
Yes. Can you all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. I want to say thank you for offering me the opportunity to speak to you all tonight. And I'll start with some updates and things I want to highlight from the mayor's office, beginning with Happy Women's History Month. And I want to just note that with regard to Women's History Month, the mayor is going to be celebrating it by hosting a Women of Excellence Award, and that will be on Wednesday, March 27th at 6 p.m. at 1215 U Street Northwest. I'll drop in the chat the link to register for any persons who wish to attend that affair. And then likewise, I just want to highlight some good news. DC, Washington, D.C. was ranked as the best place for pursuing a tech career. It was also likewise listed as the leading DC region in leading metro area in the region to do nationwide, in the nation rather, to do office to apartment conversion. So that's really good. And turning those big buildings downtown into apartments, which then gives us the opportunity to gain more revenue in the city, as we know, and we'll get to the budget, but this year we have a very, the mayor used the term 3 times today, sober budget, meaning that we have to, in some ways, curb our spending and figure out how to be more thoughtful around that. And so one of the ways is this office to apartment conversion process, and we're leading the nation in doing that. Likewise, I want to note that DC was also named the top metro for women open businesses in the last year. And so hats off to all the women business owners. And we have a lot here in Ward 4. Then want to pivot to speaking about Mayor Bowser on March 11th, and Mayor Bowser and DIMP had launched the district's housing in downtown program, the first major office to residential conversion in the downtown area. The program will catalyze development and add thousands of new residents to downtown DC, and also expand the region. As we know, in the last year, DC's population grew. And so that is some of the ways we're trying to catalyze that growth through converting those apartments downtown. our buildings downtown into apartments. Likewise, we hosted, the mayor hosted with DIMPED a March Madness Expo, the district's yearly business showcase of new real estate, housing, and workforce development initiatives. And I want to just take the opportunity to note that among those development opportunities, in the last year, we had monies from DGS go out to Whittier Elementary School modernization. That's here in Ward 4. That budget was $65 million. And then for DPR, the Upshur Rec Center here in Ward 4 also got $19 million out of that program. And likewise, I had a lot of residents reach out. DIMPED is taking applications for the Great Street grants. And so for anyone who's interested, those application deadlines have been pushed back from March 15th to March 29th. I'll also drop the link in there for any businesses who wish to further develop and build out their business in terms of infrastructure. There's a whole host of ways you can use that money. You can be eligible for up to $80,000, $85,000 in grant monies. And that brings me to just thinking about the whole total picture. We mentioned public safety. Last summer, we note that Mayor Bowser introduced legislation Safer Stronger 2.0, which went into effect on an emergency basis. That legislation included some of the same provisions that was in Secure DC, which was unanimously passed by DC Council. And it gives, as we know, MPD a host of resources and tools that will allow them to do their jobs in a way that can bring down crime. And so I'm happy to announce here today that crime is down for the first 2.5 months of 2024 compared to the same period last year. That's total crime down by 12%, property crime down by 12%, violent crime down by 15%, assault with a dangerous weapon down by 34%, homicides down by 36%. And so we already are starting to see some of the effects of what being intentional around public safety means. And the mayor is happy that these numbers are continuing to tick down. And as a part of the total package, the mayor also has introduced hubs. And so the first hub is in Chinatown corridor. There will be one coming to the U Street corridor, and then one in Anacostia. And these hubs actually are resource centers that allow persons in the community to touch base with agencies without having to go down to those agencies per se. And so they're in the communities where we see a need. And this idea came from Chief of Police Smith. And so we have at these sites, we have individual representatives from DBH, from DOH, as well as MOKers and other agencies to help provide on-site resources for individuals. And that first location is in Chinatown, right by the Walgreens. And so we also have seen a drastic downtick in crime at that area as well. Likewise, I want to note that the mayor is coming up on planning for the Summer in the City. District families are invited to attend the second annual Summer in the City, which will take place April 6th from 11 to 2 p.m. at Raymond Elementary School. I can drop the link for that as well. And this will be an opportunity for district youth and families to hear from approximately 50 government agencies, nonprofit organizations, and community stakeholders about the various programming available to them. And that some of that program includes the 2024 Marion Barry Summer Youth Employment Program, and that program applications, I think, are open now. And lastly, I will end with DGS is over the next few weeks will prepare for the warmer weather by beginning scheduled mowing and ground maintenance and turning on water sources and adjusting lighting timers. Beginning in April, DGS will be working with all DC government facilities, including DC public schools, to transfer HVAC systems from heating to air conditioning. So I have one other note and is a follow-up from a previous meeting that I joined in. Had an opportunity to get a question from Commissioner CC around a community member in her SMD that had called out to Washington Gas about a leak or potential leak, and then there was like a lack of opportunity for follow-up. And so I actually went to a Washington Gas event, meet and greet with various council person staff, including Ms. Rogers, and we learned a whole host of information. And one of the things is I posited the question exactly how it was posited to me, in that, you know, people call in with information about a potential leak and then they don't ever hear about any follow-up. And so they said that they would take that idea notion to leadership with the idea of creating some kind of opportunity to close that loop. And so while I don't know what that looks like, Commissioner CC, I can put you in contact with the their legislative policy representative that was willing to have you follow up with her. And so I'll stop there and take any questions that the commissioners and the public may have.
Thank you, Derek. Oh, sorry, you do that.
No, I was just going to say thank you, Mr. Johnson. I have a question from Commissioner Corniotis.
Yes, basically, thank you for that information regarding Washington Gas. We actually recently had another gas leak situation on the street. It's very troubling. And I shouldn't laugh. It's just, it's been going on for about 2 years, where there's random gas leak repairs in our very small streets. So, and you know, with that, there was, you know, drilling all day. Supposedly they've repaired another leak, but again, no follow-up. So, you know, like there just has to be a better way to be more transparent when it comes to gas leaks, especially from a, you know, health and safety perspective. A question I have for you, Derek, is, so the mayor has stated and restated the fact that the budget is significantly, you know, stretched and so on and so forth. And I know that the budget release has been delayed. Is there a reason for that particular, you know, delay in the mayor's budget?
I think there is some question about some component features. I don't think it is anything that is going to forego the ability for the community to engage on the budget. I think it's just a question that happened to come at a time where it was very near the date that it needed to be dropped. I don't think there's anything to be read into it. I think there's just really a question open, and once that happens, I know that the mayor and her team has been working diligently to secure that final budget so that it can be put forward to the public. As you know, she's hosted 3 to 5 online and in-person budget engagement community meetings. And that was an opportunity to outline some of her vision for the budget and get people ready to engage in the conversations about some of the hard things that we have to do as a city, given revenues. And so I don't think it's anything that is ultimately going to be consequential to the ability for the community to weigh in on the budget.
And then just a quick follow-up question. You mentioned that DGS is going to start mowing and for the summer. Does DGS partner or coordinate with rodent control as well? Because especially as the weather warms up, the rat situation also increases significantly, especially around, you know, restaurants and so on and so forth. So that's something that I want to put out there, that there has to be coordination in that respect as well. Yes,
I know that last summer, at beginning of the summer last year, the council member and various council members went around to DCPS schools. And I know that one of the schools we went to with the council member, she had asked that the bushes in front be removed because they were burrowing for rats. And so while DGS does come in to fix the facilities and monitor the grounds, they do get requests directly from principals who say they need certain things. And so I know that as those requests come in, they are put in on the priority list to be rectified. And so I think that coordination is something that I'm happy that you highlighted, and that I will definitely be working with DGS to alert about. But in general, I do think it's happening. I want to be I don't ever think it harms to highlight it in real time. So thank you for that.
Question from Commissioner Morensic.
Oh yeah, I mean, CC kind of covered it. Hi, Derek. Great to see you as always. You know I love you, but I was just going to ask more directly, where's the budget? Where's the budget? That's just what I wanted to know. And you already answered that, but thank you for that.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate it. And yes, I do see it forthcoming. I don't think it is some challenge that cannot be overcome. And so I don't have an exact date, but I will take back to leadership that is a concern that is raised here tonight. Rightfully so.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Next up, we have Mr. Bryant from Streetline. Mr. Bryant, the floor is yours, sir. And if you don't mind, yeah, that would be perfect. This way people online can hear you as well. Oh, sure. And Commissioner Corniotis is going to introduce you.
I'm going to introduce you quickly. So Mr. Ricky Bryant is a member of our community, a resident of the Colony House in my single member district. And he's also the founder and visionary, I want to say, for the Streetline program, which he will describe for all of us now. Thank you, Mr. Bryant, for being here.
Okay, I'd like to thank the commissioners for having me here. We have a mic issue. Good. Okay, we're good. All right, I'd like to thank the commissioners for having me here. There are council members, Derek from the mayor's office that's familiar with Streetline. Hi, Derek. I've really been pushing this program to get off the ground. It's a program that deals with mentoring, but we found a way to mentor in a different and distinguished way. I've worked with programs from CSOSA, which runs federal government, parole and probation. I did mentoring for those people for a few years. So what I come to find out is that we could not be on every corner. Mentoring works. It most definitely works. It's a very good alternative to just locking people up and throwing away the key. You know, getting them some resources and understanding and guidance is what we really need for our youth and young adults here. And so what I did, I created a way where the corners can actually come to us, meaning that those people that hang out on the corners, those people that hang out in the storefronts and parking lots and housing units, quarters and stuff like that. Well, we found a way through resources never been done before, is nobody ever looked at it for as it's an addictive behavior. And I defined in my search that this addiction can be combated through mentoring. So what I did, I found a way to bring this to a forefront where I created a call center. So the corners, through marketing and letting them know they have a place to call, can now call and get mentoring service from my program, the Streetline. So it's geared towards targeting those people that are hanging out on these corners. That's where our most negative influence and energy is coming from, to where our crime and all the things of that nature are happening. They're happening from these people hanging out on these corners and have nothing to do with their lives. So we want to give them an opportunity for them to be able to call, an opportunity to be a alternative programming from just locking people up. We want to educate them. We want to give them some kind of guidance. We want to let them know consequences, things like that. Because if you don't know the consequences of your crime that you're committing, you subject just go off emotions and just do things. So, but if you know the consequences, if you know that if I take this guy's tennis shoes or this guy's coat, that you can get 10 years because that's robbery, So we want to basically educate people. We don't want to just say, hey, lock them up. Because when you lock people up and just give up on them, you're creating Frankensteins. That's all you're doing. You're creating, when they get out, all they're doing is thinking about how better they can get away with something. So we want to educate these people before they get to that point. We want to catch these people in the corners and let them know that they have an opportunity to even volunteer, to even to educate themselves. Even our dope pushers. Hey, you a dope pusher? Fine. Okay, now the money that you made, won't you put it in an education? Won't you go to college with it? Give them some alternatives. Give them something else to think about instead of doing something negative in their life. And this is what Streetline is designed to do. So we are at the point now, we are up and running. We do have our call line, but we are at the point now where we need to be marketing. They need to know that they have a place to call. And we're talking about calls that's, and what we're trying to see is like everybody has a hotline: gamblers, suicide, Alcohol Anonymous, all of them, but they don't have nothing to combat their addiction. And this is what Streetline does. So we want to give them a hotline to say, hey, you got a place to call now and get positive energy. We want to make sure that they can get that now, that they can come with something positive. So right now we're at the point where we can take those calls, but they have to know where to call. So I have to say we are now taking donations. We have a website you can go to, streetlinedc.com. I will pass out flyers with that information. So we want to get the marketing aspect of it up, meaning that we want to let these people know that they have a place to call now. They're not alone now, and most of them feel alone. Most of them feel abandoned. Most of them feel like they have no self-worth. So we want to let them know that they do have this self-worth. So we want alternatives than just locking them up. We want people to see that they have a choice now. You have someone you can call, somebody that can give you positive guidance now. They didn't have that at first. And we all know that it haven't been out there. So I'm looking for, those donations from our public, donations from our commissioners, all of it, to help with this project, and again, this project has never been even thought of before. No, mentoring, everybody thought of mentoring, but where's everybody on the corners? There's nobody there to talk to our youth and young adults. I also want to get it in schools where those kids that's in detention, where they can call Streetline and say, hey, they can get some kind of encouragement, and get some kind of awareness of the choices that they make, before they become criminalized, in that way of thinking. So we want to catch them young, but we also want to give those, we got what they call old heads out there too. We got them out there on the corners as well. So we want to encourage them to let them know that you have a worth, a purpose in life. We want to let them know these things because they pretty much have given up on life. If they have to go out there and hang out on the corner all day doing nothing. So even if, like I said, we can recommend you volunteer for particular things, and we want to give them something to do with their life. We want to give them purpose. So with that, I'm trying to encourage people to understand that this is really needed in our community. Locking them up, that's easy. But what you're gonna have when you come out? You know what I'm saying? I mean, realistically, you know, if we don't get to the mind, it's a mass debriefing that has to go on with our youth and young adults. You know, and when I say that, it's like someone coming out the army, oh, they was taught to kill, kill, kill. But when they come out, they have to learn to deal with society again. So they have to go through a debriefing. We have the same war going on in our communities in DC. They have to have a mass debriefing because everybody talking, oh, what's the root of the problem? The root of the problem is this, the root of the problem. The root of the problem is right here in your mindset. If you do not reach the mindset, you won't change a thing, period. That's the bottom line. So we have a debriefing. We have to combat social media. We have to combat rap, gangster rap. We have to combat these crazy movies they have out, these video games. You know, Grand Theft Auto, it pretty much teaches you how to carjack. So they want to make it a reality. They think it's fun to go, hey, you know, we just watched Grand Theft Auto, let's go put it in reality. So they can't even distinguish, you know, fact from reality. You know, and they get caught up in these things. So we have to debrief them and take their minds back to positive avenues. You know, teach them positive things, construct them, guide them. And that's for all of us. You know, all of us have to become mentors in our community. So right now, I'm giving them and our community an avenue to reach those that's on these corners and these stairwells and these storefronts, you know, to be able to have someone to talk to, you know, because I want the operator system to be set up. I have to have finance, and I'm not going to shine that, you know, because it's needed. And we have to have marketing. They have to know where they can call. And so, you know, I'm asking our community too to donate what they can. If you donate $5, that's fine. But we want to be able to get that information out there to them. And I want to have a mass marketing of it. You know, I want to start out in our Ward 4 first. I want to get to these Kennedy Street, 7th Street, Pethworth. I want to get to those people first. So I'm starting off small, but we want to grow until we hit the total district. You know, so if you've I will pass out flyers. I will pass out a brochure. I'm also trying to work with the government on having, and you'll see it in my pamphlet, that I want to have what I call amnesty firearm boxes. Now, I heard a little opposition from our council members on it. I talked with Councilman McDuffie's staff, and they were saying, well, we tried that here and we tried that there, but you've never tried it like you had these ATMs on these corners and have an amnesty firearm box. Meaning like this, let me give you an example. If a mother is going through her 12 or 15-year-old's backpack going to school and she finds a gun, she doesn't want to give her kid in trouble. She's not going to do that, period. So how do I get rid of this gun? If we got an amnesty firearm box, you know, and of course it'll be secured. If we can get there and drop that in that firearm box, we have a gun off the street. If a thug being chased by jump outs and he reaches the amnesty firearm box, as long as they don't have a body on these weapons, and he can drop it in the amnesty firearm box, then he won't be charged. But we have a gun off the street.
Chairman, can
Yes.
we move on? I know we're moving to we have a lot of stuff on our agenda later. Can we maybe get the information in the chat box and reach out to the gentleman at a later time?
Yeah, Mr. Bryan, could I just ask you, maybe you can wrap up?
Well,
And
I
we
can wrap
okay.
it up, but if there's a Q&A, feel free to ask any questions. You know I'm a little long-winded, but these messages really have to be out there, and people have to know and be aware. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you. Well, we appreciate the good work that you're doing for our community. It's not easy mentoring, but it's really important work. It takes a special kind of person to work with young people who are in distress, and we appreciate that work. We'd also encourage you, perhaps, Mr. Bryan, to talk with our treasurer about maybe thinking about applying for an ANC grant to help with some of this work. I don't know if the specifics would be helpful, but that might be something that you might want to chat with her later on after this conversation. Thank you.
I just have a quick question for you, Mr. Bryant. I know Officer Hemrick, for example, is very active in our community. Have you ever met with him or coordinated with him in terms of his community engagement efforts?
What I had done with Officer Hammond, we were supposed to have a meeting with a group that he had put together, but it never occurred. It was doing snow and stuff like that, so that never happened. I do see him when I go to the seniors meeting of the 4th district. He knows about street line. Every council member, including our council member, Ms. George, knows about street line. So it's just whether or not they want to.
So we have.
And you know, that's the biggest thing is the support. You know, you sign a crime bill, you're talking about drug-free zones and stuff like that. So once you support our groups that's out there doing the groundwork,
Yeah.
you know, it's talking to these young youth and young adults.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Next up, we have speakers for talking about lead-free pipes in DC. Mr. Abel, I don't know if you want to introduce them.
Yes, absolutely. We have a few folks here with us, but most of the presentation is going to be from Yana Lanamerdu from who's virtually with us. Just to give you all just a quick background on the folks. Yana is a adjunct assistant professor of Department of Science and Technology and Society at Virginia Tech, and the co-founder of the Campaign for Lead-Free Water. We have also Paul, who lives in 4DOB, ANC 4B, in Tacoma Park. He's worked over 40 years in multiple aspects of water justice. He's a co-founder of the Campaign for Lead-Free Water. And we also have Tanae Lewis, who's virtual with us, a native Washingtonian and a steering committee member of the DC Environmental Justice Coalition. Yana is going to present for us. And when you're ready, Yana, please go right ahead. And we'll have a Q&A for where we'll ask some of the other folks to speak as well. Go ahead, Yana.
Thank you so much. Can you see the slide?
Yes, we can.
Before you get started, Yana, are you Greek?
I am Greek.
Tikani, Safari Star.
Excellent. Very nice to meet you. And I'm also a resident of Ward 4. And I want to thank you, Abel, and thank you, ANC 4D commissioners, for having us tonight. Since we have limited time, I'm going to touch on a few highlights from the science of lead in water and the history of lead in DC's water to make one key point: that the 2 lead-free DC bills in front of us today are crucial, urgent, and long overdue for protecting our community from entirely preventable and yet routine exposures to lead in our water. Passing a resolution in support of these bills would help usher in a new chapter where we finally address this problem in a scientifically sound, public health protective, equitable, and just way. Now, I realize that according to these yard signs, lead in DC's water is being swiftly resolved, and that by 2030, what's dispensed from our taps will be lead-free. Unfortunately, this is far from the truth, and for many reasons. 3 of the main ones are: first, the DC water, whose cost estimate for replacing all remaining lead service lines skyrocketed suddenly last summer from $540 million to $1.5 billion, and far exceeds the cost estimate of every other city I'm aware of. DC Water now claims to have a shortfall of approximately $60 million for the replacement of the portion of lead service lines that's in private property. And this makes the 2030 promise impossible for the agency to keep, because at the end of the day, this promise was conditional on local and federal dollars being dropped on DC Water's lap. The second reason why the yard signs are misleading is that DC Water's current 3 lead service line replacement programs are not only confusing, but designed to move slowly, meaning that they take place not proactively, but in conjunction with other infrastructure work. Plus, these programs favor residents who have the wherewithal to initiate such replacements and the resources to pay out of pocket for the replacement of the service line in private property. And the third reason why the yard signs mislead is that DC Water not only lacks, but also resists truthful public education that levels with residents about the ubiquity of lead in water in all types of buildings, whether they have a lead service line or not, and steps we can take for effective and immediate protection. Passage of a combined omnibus and Green New Deal bill will give us the opportunity to resolve or at least minimize these problems. On the other hand, not passing these bills will add a new wave of environmental injustice and perpetuate entirely preventable citywide exposures, and I'll explain why. Key facts about the science of lead in water lie at the heart of the problem and, of course, of its solutions as well. Lead exposure, even at low levels and with no visible symptoms, can cause lifelong injury in multiple human organs. It has been associated with miscarriage, stillbirth, and reduced IQ. Here you can see the significant rise in cognitively challenged children and the significant drop in cognitively gifted children. Lead exposure has also been linked to reduced educational attainment, antisocial behavior, aggression, and violent crime. The scientific consensus is that there's no safe level of lead in blood. Although lead plumbing was condemned for the serious health harm it can cause in ancient Greece and Rome over 2,000 years ago, in the 1800s and all the way up to the 1970s, DC's plumbing code essentially forced lead service lines on city residents. These lines connected the water mains under the streets to individual homes. Now, it's important to know 3 things about lead-bearing plumbing. First, that although lead service lines are typically the greatest source of lead contamination, they are certainly not the only significant source. Lead service lines are made of 100% pure lead and are estimated to be around 12 million or so nationally. In DC, the estimate is around 41,000. But then there's leaded brass and bronze, which can be found in almost all buildings, and lead solder, which can be found in about 81 million homes. The second thing to know is that when lead-bearing plumbing releases lead into the water, this lead appears in dissolved form like sugar in hot tea, but also in the form of particles. Lead particles are small pieces of pure lead, leaded solder, brass, or rust that tend to fall into the water erratically. Lead particles can easily exceed the EPA's hazardous waste threshold. The photograph of the aerator screen on the bottom left here that you see on the slide is from the kitchen tap of a child in North Carolina who was lead poisoned from food that was cooked with contaminated water. Indeed, scientists have found that food containing lead particles can expose a person to more lead than a lead paint chip approximately the size of a penny. And the third thing that's important to know is that exposure to these particles is like a game of Russian roulette. You can turn on a tap many times and draw lead-free water, and then suddenly you can happen to catch a particle and ingest astronomical levels of lead. This particularity, of course, makes standard one-time testing practically meaningless. And so what's important about the history of lead in DC's water? And why must this history inform the bills that City Council will hopefully enact? DC has been grappling with documented health harm from lead in water since at least the 1980s. Around 15 years later, in 2001 and 2002, 60 to 80 concerned residents contacted the DC Department of Health requesting urgent lead service line replacement. Some of these residents were struggling to protect a child with elevated blood lead levels and had discovered that their tap water was contaminated with lead. DC WASA, which was the name of our water utility at the time, declined to conduct the replacements because it argued that our water met EPA regulatory requirements. 2.5 years later, in 2004, the Washington Post broke the news that 4,000 of the 6,000 homes tested had high and very high levels of lead. This was a shocking and an unprecedented level of contamination, both in terms of its severity and extent throughout the city. An independent investigation by the later U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder revealed that a couple of years earlier, when residents were pleading for their lead service lines to be replaced and were dismissed, D.C. WASA's claim that it met EPA regulatory requirements was based in large part on the fact that the agency had hidden 5 high lead in water measurements. This confirmed that DC's lead in water crisis had started in 2001 and could have ended in 2001 as well if the residents had been listened to. An independent investigation, and so this is really what we're confronting here is that our city went through a 2.5-year cover-up. You may wonder why this historic event has been erased from our nation's collective memory, which treats Flint, Michigan as the crisis that put lead in water on the map. And that's because exactly 2 months after the Washington Post expose, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, in partnership with the DC Department of Health, published a paper claiming that no one had been harmed. This finding contradicted decades of prior scientific research on the health effects of lead in water. So, no harm, no foul, and therefore no one was held accountable, no one apologized, and no one offered support services to the affected residents. To the contrary, DC WASA managed to paint itself as a hero by making a community water pledge, which it claimed went above and beyond EPA requirements in order to replace all of the city's lead service lines, estimated to be 23,000 at the time, at the cost of $350 million by 2010. This pledge was one of the reasons behind the withdrawal of the only class action suit that had been filed at the time against the water utility. But there was a catch. DC WASA's pledge was to replace only the portion of lead service lines in public space and to leave the private space portion intact unless homeowners paid for its replacement. Aside from the alarming injustice and inequity of the plan, WASA did not disclose that under certain circumstances, these so-called partial replacements resulted in increased contamination. Indeed, by 2006, DC WASA had data showing astronomical lead spikes, as well as long-term lead problems in several DC homes following partial replacement. But that data didn't stop the agency from continuing with the program. By 2008, DC WASA had completed over 14,000 partials. The story could have ended there, and residents could have been deceived into believing that the ending was a happy one. But thanks in large part to resident activism, the sobering truth eventually came out. By 2008, DC WASA could no longer deny that its community water pledge had wasted $93 million in ratepayer funds to at times place residents at increased health risk. Later that year, DC WASA formally terminated the program, downplayed the significance of its own alarming data, did nothing to remedy the homes with partial replacements, increased water rates, and started a slower-paced lead service line replacement program that looked very much like the programs we have today. Lead service lines were replaced in conjunction with other construction, partial replacements continued, albeit at a slower rate, and full replacements occurred when homeowners initiated the replacement and paid for the private side of the lines themselves. The following year, a seminal study confirmed that DC's lead in water crisis had in fact caused over 800 and possibly up to 42,000 childhood lead poisonings. And the year after that, a congressional investigation decried the CDC and DC Department of Health no harm study as a public health tragedy. It concluded that its finding had come from data that were known to be flawed and that it was scientifically indefensible. The following year, the CDC published a new study, this one about DC WASA's community water pledge replacements. It established that children in homes with a partially replaced lead service line were over 3 times as likely to have significant elevations of lead in their blood as children in homes with no lead service line. Arguably, DC Watts' community water pledge had resulted in a second wave of large-scale health harm, this time under the guise of remediation. The icing on the cake came in 2013 when a new study linked DC's lead in water crisis to a 37% rise in the city's fetal death rate. In closing, where are we today? And here is, I think, here are some important highlights. DC's homicide rate has presented a significant challenge, and this has happened against a backdrop of scientific literature showing a 20 or so year lag between lead exposure and crime. DC Water's latest sampling results show that although things have much improved, of course, 73 to 81% of sample taps dispensed some lead at the time of sampling. Since these were first draw samples, they tend to represent lead that leaches from in-home plumbing, which means that they tend to reflect lead contamination in all buildings, whether they have a lead service line or not. The 3 highest lead measurements are very high, and they likely reflect the presence of erratic lead particles. And lastly, DC Water is continuing to resist an aggressive full lead service line replacement program that spares residents of all costs, direct and indirect, despite the fact that both waves of prior health harm that were inflicted on us resulted in large part from our water utilities' commitment to avoiding the cost of these replacements. And also, there's persistent resistance against honest public education about the health protective capacity of lead-certified filters, which can reduce dramatically, if not eliminate, routine exposures effectively and immediately. The 2 lead-free DC bills in front of us today are the best chance we've got to finally protect the people of our city, and to do so in a scientifically robust, justice-centered, and equitable way. And that's why it's so important to pass the proposed ANC 4D resolution in support of this legislation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doctor. We appreciate the presentation, which is very informative and helpful. I imagine that there will be a number of questions and comments from the community. Perhaps if we could hold off on those and see if there are any quick questions from commissioners, so we can make sure we get through all of our agenda items before we turn it over to the community for comments. So any quick questions from commissioners?
I just have one quick question for you, Doctor. Thank you again for your presentation. My question is, there was a significant disparity of the cost to replace the lead pipes in the district in comparison to, say, Michigan or, other areas. What's the reasoning behind that? And my second question is, is the fact that, to replace some of these pipes in a home, they have the repair, whoever does this has to dig up a person's yard, etc. Is there other ways to go about it? Because in some situations, someone's yard has a bunch of flowers, but, and I understand the health aspects outweigh that, but, I was just curious if there's alternative ways to replacing those pipes.
Well, thank you for this question. I'm happy to answer them, but I'm wondering if either of my colleagues would like to address them. Paul or Tanae?
Hi, I'm Paul Schwartz, and I live the closest living thing to the front door of the Tacoma Theater up in ANC 4B03, and thank you for letting me be up here. But to answer the first question, Commissioner, we really don't know the answer to that. What we know is that it's totally out of line, $36,000 per service line in DC, versus 5 to 10,000 in Newark versus, you know, a lot less in Benton Harbor, Michigan. 40% of those costs are fully for permitting and ripping up the road and replacing them. And that's totally out of line with what those projects are elsewhere. The other part of it is knowing with, you know, the Kennedy Street project that's underway and many other projects that when you rip up the street repeatedly, you actually risk shaking the pipes inside the homes and outside the homes that create even more exposure for people who have service lines or don't have service lines. And that's really important for people to know, and they don't know that information now. The second thing is to answer the question about what the nuisance is of all of the street work and the pipe work. Of course, it's incredibly obtrusive in our communities for traffic, for safety, for our investments in our homes and yards. And one of the things that we really have to look at is what are those projects and how are they being pulled together and what's the communication link? And on that end, what we really need is help from all the commissioners and the neighbors and to create an oversight and transparency and accountability with the construction that's going on by DC Water and their subcontractors.
I'm actually very happy that you stated that, because I've been saying this for probably almost a year or over a year, but we had our back alley, repaved with permeable pavers, and I'm convinced that the digging actually did shake the gas line of my home and my neighbor's home. And we had to, spend what it cost to repair that. But then, once the project was finished, quote unquote, you get a little pamphlet or piece of paper saying your project's done, but then there's no oversight. So I am actually drafting a resolution for that purpose specifically. So
we do have in the two bills some oversight language and an establishment of an oversight commission that includes residents. We don't know that we're going to get that. And one of the reasons why we need ANC 4D to pass the resolution is to really let council members know that people are watching and demanding this type of action as we move forward. We're looking at 70% of the blocks in Washington, D.C. for this program being ripped up and repaired on top of Unplugged DC and on top of the gas stuff and on top of, all sorts of things like the Kennedys, on and on and on. Right. So
a question from Commissioner Lucarelli.
Yeah, Mr. Schwartz, thank you. I just have a question. So we heard a lot about the problem and the history of it and, how we got here, but what can people do in the interim until they can replace the pipes? Because I don't think we really heard anything about that. And I realize that, the effort today was focused on, getting us to sign on to the resolution, which I'm happy to do. But if someone knows they have lead, or how do they test for lead? And if they do, what can they do? I mean, apart from buying bottled water or what?
Well, I'll answer this very briefly and then turn it over to Tanae Lewis if she has anything to add. But I think the most important or salient thing for me as a resident with a family here and neighbors here is to protect ourselves immediately, because it could take a long time before the pipes are replaced.
But is
outside our homes.
And sorry, I don't mean to rush you. Just
sure,
we are pressed on time and we have to be out of here at 8:30. So if someone knows they have lead, is there some sort of device they can install, or I mean, what are the recommendations?
So
what are the recommendations?
A countertop pitcher filter or a faucet mounted filter. Yana had the slide that has NSF, or National Science Foundation, 42 and 53. And those are the two standards to let you know that it's going to reduce or possibly eliminate lead as a normal exposure route over time. That's really important. And we're developing a piece of literature that will link people to all of the different filters that have those dual certifications.
Thank you, sir. And like I said, I imagine there will be a number of questions from the public. So if you're around for the next,
yeah, I'll be around
perfect.
through past when we're done. So,
excellent. Thank you, sir. Next.
I didn't know if Tanae had a brief thing she wanted to add. So
it was just going to be around DC Water's latest update on how long they project the repairs to be done. I attended a workshop on February the 23rd, at Covenant Baptist Church, where DC Water and some other advocates, including myself, were present, and they assured the residents that were there that this process was a one-day-long process, and that the construction work is very minimum distractions to folks' yards and things like that. And so they had a demonstration where they shared how the process worked and when it would be completed for a typical home.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
My pleasure.
And thank you all for coming tonight and for the information, which I imagine that there will be lots of questions for you during the Q&A period. Next up, we have a representative from DPW. We have Randy Thorpe. Randy Thorpe, are you there? Randy
I
Thorpe
am.
was there. Oh,
I
hello,
am.
welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me. Good evening, everyone. My name is Randy Thorpe. I am the Community Relations Specialist at DPW. I just wanted to inform you all that our next community conversation with our Director Spriggs will be held this upcoming April 24th. It will be virtual. I shared the link with all the ANCs. However, I will share the link again with you all in the chat. So this particular community conversation, we are asking residents and constituents to submit any type of questions or concerns that they would like addressed regarding DPW services. We have an online form. And like I said, I'll send the link in the chat. And we're asking that the questions be submitted by 11:59 p.m. on March 31st. And again, this conversation will be April 24th. It's virtual at 6:30.
Thank you, Ms. Thorpe. Any questions from commissioners for DPW?
Yes, just a very quick question, Ms. Thorpe. Thank you for coming this evening. A while back, Commissioner Morensic and Commissioner Weigel and myself took part in a public safety walk with the mayor. This was in January of 2023 when in January 2023, where we walked on Georgia Avenue around and we ended basically at the library. And during the mayor's outbrief comments, she made a statement about how dirty, filthy that area of our ward is, but it's sort of, I think it's sort of consistent with the ward in general. So in terms of like public street cleanup and so on and so forth, even from a public health perspective, is there a game plan? Because our mayor makes these statements, but then our city continues to be much more filthy than I've remembered it being in the last almost 20 years that I've lived here.
Well, thank you for your question. Our spring service operations will be at full capacity starting April 1st, which will include street cleaning, alley cleaning, ground maintenance, graffiti removal, and mowing of public spaces. Our street sweeping operations have already began. They began, I believe it was March the 4th. So if you have any areas that need to be addressed, as well as April 1st, the service requests will be open for the alley cleanings and the street cleaning as well. So if you have any areas that need to be addressed, you can put in a 311 request, or you can email me personally, and I'll make sure that it gets taken care of. I'll put my email in.
Thank you. I'll be sure to do that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Bell.
Hi, Randy. I think I still owe you an email back, but I want to again ask about alley cleaning. I appreciate you saying the 311 will be available again. I assume that's true, right? When alley cleaning will be fully available, I should be able to request a 311 request on the website. Okay.
Yeah.
There is one alley in particular. It was part of my testimony for the performance oversight for DPW. I have pictures and everything. I believe I forwarded it to you. It's the alley system bordered by Long Island and Kennedy and 5th and 7th. It's really horrendous. I really would appreciate some attention to that alley system. But I will be submitting other. You said when is the 311? Please respond to that if you can. But and I can forward that email to you again.
Okay.
But April, you said April 4th is when you expect.
No, April 1st. April 1st.
April
April
1st.
1.
That's
April 1. Yes. And just to let you all know, during the off season, during like the fall and winter months, if you all do need an alley cleaning, the alley cleaning service request is not available. However, you can submit a sanitation enforcement service request, and then just make sure you put in the comments that it's to address the alley, and we'll take care of it. Because a lot of people will seem to think, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I appreciate that. And in that email, which I'll forward to you, you will see a service request for an inspection. And what do the inspectors called? One of the inspectors came out, looked at that ticket, and said that he referred it to the alley cleaning services department. But that was several months ago, and the alley cleaning service has not come through. So I just want to just highlight to you that I know you have sweep teams. I know you've offered to me actually specifically to go along with the sweep team. And I would love to do that. So I will reach back to you. That's the email that I owe you is to set up a time.
No problem.
Yeah. But if you could look, I'm ANC 4DO2, if you could, and I will forward it again. I have many details about that alley system specifically between Long Island and Kennedy and 5th and 7th that really needs attention. One sweep by the machine would probably fix all of this. So I'm just, I'll reach back out again as well.
Yeah, I would
Okay, and
just
real
second.
quick,
I would
I'm
just
sorry,
second
real
what.
quick. Can I make
I'm
sure
just
I
seconding-
get the correct address for the alley? You said it's between 5th and 7th, between Kennedy.
5th and yeah, the alley system between 5th and 7th, Kennedy and Long Island.
Longfellow.
Sorry.
Okay, Longfellow. Okay.
Yeah, I
Okay,
was
got
like, are we living in Long Island?
And thank you, Ms. Thorpe.
I
And
live on Longfellow and I'm saying Long Island. I don't know why. I apologize, but
I
yeah.
got you. I got
Thank
it.
you, Ms. Thorpe. I imagine there will be a number of questions from members of the community as well. So if you don't mind staying around for the rest of the meeting, we'd appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Next up, we have committee updates. Commissioner Pinckney is not here this evening, so there won't be a library committee update. And the Public Service Committee was dissolved at the end of the year, so we have no updates there. Next up, we have announcements from commissioners. Commissioners, when I call your name, please let us know if you have any announcements. Commissioner Pinckney is not here. Commissioner Bell, any announcement? Nope. Okay. Commissioner Lucarelli? Nope. Commissioner Corniotis?
No.
Commissioner Morenzik? Commissioner George?
No, I do not.
I have a couple of small updates for folks. I'm going to put one link in the chat. On the topic of lead, there was some reporting a couple of weeks ago about lead contamination being found to be more widespread in various brands of ground cinnamon. I'm just going to paste this in the chat so folks are aware that they may want to double check the brands of cinnamon that they're using, whether they're on this list, and probably closely follow this issue because I suspect that the contamination may be continuing to be even more widespread than what was reported in this. I think it started as lead contamination in a few brands of children's applesauce, and it is now continuing to widen. Also, the district's e-bike rebate incentive program is launching next month. For folks who don't know, the district has set aside money to give folks a subsidy to purchase e-bikes through DC retailers. And the top priority in April when the project launches is going to be for residents who are on SNAP and TANF. Great. We'll have some community comment too. So I just wanted to let folks know, I think it's an exciting program. I am a huge e-bike convert and advocate myself. Mine's like sitting right there. I think it's really exciting for the district to try and make these more widely available. It's a cool program. DDOT has a webpage that I will put in the chat with information about this, but the rebate is quite substantial, and applications for the rebate launch early next month. There's also an e-bike, what they're calling an e-bike tasting event at the Healthy Homes Fair on April 6th, where folks are invited to try out a bunch of e-bikes. And I believe DDOT staff will also be on hand at that event to talk about the rebate.
Thank you, Commissioner George. Commissioner Weigel, any updates?
No updates. I will say I did actually see alley cleaning happening in real life over in my neck of the woods. That was between 4th and 5th and Farragut and Emerson.
Well, that's good news. Good to hear.
Saw a team picking up stuff, saw the sweeping machine. It was really cool to see.
Did you take a picture of that? Because I haven't seen one of those in a decade.
Thank you, Commissioner.
No, I didn't, but I knew you would be excited to see it. I saw it. You were the first person I thought of, CC.
Next up, we have a carryover old business from last time. This was the Cleans Hand resolution proposed by Commissioner Bell. We had postponed that vote. Commissioner Bell, any other updates that we need to know about before we vote later on this evening?
No updates
Okay.
this time, but
Or
if anybody
any-
has questions, I'm
yeah.
happy to answer.
Any questions from commissioners for Commissioner Bell? Okay, we'll move along then. New business, we have a liquor license renewal application from Fair Liquors. I'm going to propose, this is actually within my ANC, that we postpone conversation for this until next month. The application deadline, or the deadline to file, is April 22nd. So that's our meeting is before then. This isn't located in that complex along New Hampshire Avenue. There have been a number of issues there with crime, with garbage. So I think it's worth having a conversation with Fair Liquors about any measures or steps that they're taking to help reduce both crime and litter in that area. So I'm just going to suggest that we postpone it until Commissioner Mrenzek and I have had a chance to speak with them, if that's okay with everybody. Okay. Next up, we have a BZA application. Commissioner Mrenzek, I think this is yours.
Yes, thank you. This is a BZA application for the St. Paul's Episcopal Church on behalf of the Christian Family Montessori School that is housed on their premises. They are looking to expand their enrollment to include grades 7 and 8. And as far as my understanding, there are no changes in the exterior usage. They're going to be using a cottage that's already on the property. I'm very familiar with the area. I bike to and from my child's school there. I like to go into the property every time they have a festival. It's great. And I understand that we have a representative from the applicant, Ms. Boomhauer. If you would like to take over, I will yield to you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. And good evening to all present. Thank you, Chairman Perotti. Can I go ahead and share my screen? Is that possible? To share pictures?
Maybe give us 1 second where
Sure.
we'll work
Just
on the
made you a co-host,
technological
so you
aspect.
should be able to share.
Great, thank you. So it's a pleasure to be with you tonight. Again, my name is Keely Boomhauer, and I'm the head of school at Christian Family Montessori School and have been since 2018. And I'm also a Ward 4 resident since 2014, 10 years now. And here with me tonight, in case we have any questions, I have Liz Rogers, who's been advising us on the BZA process, and John Zubeler, who's worked with us on our space planning. Christian Family Montessori School, as Commissioner Marinchik said, is seeking a special exception relief to allow for a modest increase in our student enrollment and staffing. And before we go ahead, sorry, was somebody needing to step in? I thought I heard somebody. Before we discuss our current proposal, I just wanted to give you a brief background about our school. We were established in 1981 and operated initially as an independent and nonprofit school at St. James Catholic Church in Mount Rainier. And then after a decade-long home search to move into the district to better serve our community, we received approval from the BZA, the Board of Zoning Adjustments, in December 2010. And that's when we were able to relocate to the building seen here, which is at 201 Allison Street Northwest, right in the middle of Rock Creek Church Cemetery. And as many of you are likely aware, Rock Creek Church Cemetery is a much larger property. It's about 86 acres. And the property is improved with several buildings, including St. Paul's Center, which is a portion of which our school is housed within. And another portion of the property in yellow in the southwest corner of the property is a small cottage. And that is the space that we're discussing tonight as we look to expand our footprint into that additional space on the property. When we first relocated to Petworth, many of the families that were previously enrolled at our school came from the neighborhoods sort of just outside the district. So Mount Rainier, where the school was located, in Hyattsville and Cheverly. However, as anticipated, over the past 12 years, CFMS has become established in the neighborhood, and the number of students from Ward 4 has steadily increased. And in fact, currently 50% of our existing students reside either in Ward 4 or Ward 5. And we're really pleased to be able to serve this neighborhood. The existing special exception allows for a maximum enrollment of 120 students, ages 2.5 to 12 years old. So we currently have 2 early childhood classrooms that serve multi-age classes of 3 to 6-year-olds, 1 lower elementary class of 6 to 9-year-olds, 1 upper elementary classroom with 9 to 12-year-olds, and we'd like to expand to include 7th and 8th graders. We have approximately 18 staff members on site at any given time, but in order to better serve the families of our community and to broaden our reach in Petworth, we'd like to expand our programming to include 7th and 8th grade. And in order to accommodate that adolescent program, we'd like to increase our enrollment cap from 120 students to 150 students, and to increase our staff cap to 25 staff members at any given time. As I mentioned, the adolescent program will be accommodated within this existing 2-story cottage. And you can see, if you've walked through the cemetery, as Commissioner Marinchik has, that it's just inside that gate on Allison Street, near the intersection with 3rd Street. So there's a little red arrow there pointing to the location of it. And then off on the left in this photo, you see our current home, which is part of St. Paul's Center. We are not seeking any changes to our hours of operation, and also are continuing to use the DDOT vehicular circulation pattern that was established when we first moved in. So we ask all of our staff and parents and caregivers to use the gate at the intersection of Rock Creek Church Road Northwest and Webster Street as our ingress. And then we have a dedicated staff parking lot, and we have designated parking for parents within the property as they drop off and pick up their children. And the parking will continue to be adequate on site. Our egress pattern is to go out through the gate that I showed you on the previous slide, which is on Allison Street. And I really believe that the expansive nature of this property means that it's sufficient to accommodate all the necessary circulation and parking and pickup and drop off, especially for our small community, which ensures that there is no traffic congestion around the rest of the public roadways. Because we're not proposing any site modifications, and given that a majority of our students enrolling in the adolescent program are likely to be from within our current student body, we believe this modification will really not have any noticeable effect on the surrounding community, except for the benefit of having a pre-K to 8 program available to Ward 4 residents. And I just had a conversation with Janice Lewis-George, our commissioner or our council member, about the deep need for more middle school options within our community. We're really grateful for the support of many residents in the surrounding neighborhood, and we've received several letters of support, which I've given copies of to Commissioner Marenchek. And I believe other commissioners have been provided copies of. And with that background, we're happy to answer any questions you have and hope that the ANC will vote in support of our zoning exception.
Thank you so much, Ms. Boomhauer. Are there questions from commissioners?
Yeah, just a couple quick questions. I feel like I have questions all evening this evening. But I recently.
CC, could I jump in real quick?
Yes.
Hi, sorry. This is Commissioner Marensik. I just want to say I am in favor of this. I'm very familiar with the property. I know that the students and the parents are very diligent about using the traffic pattern. My child and I bike through there every morning. My wife walks my child home every afternoon. She's never had any problems, neither have I. And I have received probably 24 letters of support from neighbors in the area and current students. So I'm definitely in support of this.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I just have one question for you, and thank you so much for your presentation. I was reached out by a friend of mine, actually, whose daughters attend that school.
Oh, great.
Yeah. I was wondering, I just applied to the lottery for my toddler. Are you part of the lottery currently, or will you be upon this expansion?
No, we're not a part of the lottery. We're kind of an unusual among independent nonprofit schools in that our mission is affordability, but we are funded with no public funding. So we have tuition, and about 40% of our students receive substantial tuition assistance up to full tuition. And then we rely on donations from our extended community. So we're an independent school, we're a nonprofit, and we're about a quarter of the cost of the independent schools that are scattered throughout the city. But we are not a part of the lottery system. Only public and charter schools can be a part of that system.
Okay, thank you. I was just wondering because I would have applied, I'm sure, or you're one of my choices. Okay.
Yeah,
bye-bye.
you still can. Yeah.
Questions from other commissioners? Yes, Commissioner.
Hi, thank you. And I'm hoping someone from your facilities management is on. I just wanted to ask, this sounds great, and thank you so much for this. And this obviously this facility can sustain a lot more than what you're asking for.
Yeah.
I just want to ask about the fencing. If you can go in one of your slides, this is kind of near Webster, and that the fencing behind the new facility that you were kind of building, and there's an alley back there I wonder if I know on the north side of the cemetery, there's been some security issues with the fencing
Mhm.
breaking down.
Yeah.
I just want to ask about what is the current state of that fencing with the alley behind you? And is it intact? Is it fully? And because like, I mean, worried about the security of your school as well, but like
Yeah.
just generally don't want to have easy access to your facility. And I just, yeah, talk about that fencing and any maintenance that's being done on it. Yeah.
I appreciate that. And I'm happy to follow up with the facilities manager at St. Paul's Rock Creek. So we are a tenant of the church that owns the entire property, and they are responsible for the security and the physical security of this space. I should say that we feel an incredible amount of gratitude to our landlords and for this lovely space within our community, and we really do want to be a part of utilizing it in positive ways. In terms of the fencing, are you talking about this area that I have back up on the screen towards Allison Street and New Hampshire side, or the North Capitol side of the property?
If you can go through the
Is it a
slides,
map?
it was a map. There was a map with let's see. Okay,
Like
it's
maybe that one?
yeah, that map works. It's the fencing that would be right next to the sign, the thing you have that says proposed school adolescent. You see where that box is?
Mhm.
It's that purple line below it. The purple dotted line
Yeah.
that you've drawn. So
Yep.
that fencing is and it wraps, like you said, around the entire property of the cemetery and all that. So like, I guess this is more of a conversation to have with your landlord. I understand
Yeah.
now. I just to, yeah, put to your attention, like that needs some attention, not just near your school, but all around. So I think this might be a conversation with more to have with the church. So thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other quick questions from commissioners?
I move to approve the application.
If you don't mind, Commissioner, if we can hold off, just in case there are comments or feedback from the public before we vote, and we'll hold off for that. Thank you, Ms. Boomhauer, for
Yeah.
attending
Thank you
tonight.
for
We
having me.
appreciate
I
it.
really appreciate it.
Next up, in order to save time for public comments, can I ask Commissioners Cornelius and Weigel to just give us a very brief update on Hamilton and Georgia and just keep it very quick, and then we can give a more in-depth update next time?
Yeah, this was Commissioner Lucarelli and myself,
you.
actually. So Commissioner Lucarelli, do you want to provide that update?
Yeah, sure. So we met up there. We kind of rolled deep with a large crew of people. It was nice to see such a presence out there. I'll sum this up from 30,000 feet because I know that we're a little pressed on time. But the agencies that came out there essentially agreed to increasing parking enforcement, increasing patrols. I've been hammering about needing more lighting out there for a long time, and so who's the agency? DDOT is going to work with getting some more lighting out there because it's a light desert. Yeah, correct. DDOT's also gonna introduce some intersection improvements to clean up some of the illegal parking that takes place behind the stop bar. And Janice also told me that she's trying to petition various restaurant groups around the city into seeing if they'd be interested in relocating there. I think one thing to note that is positive is that the former Costello's building is now listed as for sale, and they have a sign up there on the property. So the building is sort of in the market's hands, and just one thing to reiterate to folks is that when folks are in the public, because of the way the laws are constructed here, it's very hard to compel someone to leave or to take off, unless the police observe, something going on. Now, when it's on private property, that's a different story. But because there's a confluence of vacant buildings here, there aren't business owners that can say, I want this person to stop hanging out in front of my front door. If someone's doing that at your residence, they're obviously going to respond. But when it's in front of the business and there's no one there to do that, it makes their job a little bit difficult. But you know, we've gone out there a few times with them, so, you know, hopefully this time sticks, but, you know, fingers crossed. But I will say that all the times I've gone out there and interacted with folks at the city, that this, you know, I walked away from this interaction feeling like we had a lot of good direction, and that the councilwoman made it very clear to these entities sort of what our expectations are of them, which again are to increase parking enforcement, increase just regular patrols. DDOT is going to explore and execute additional lighting as well as intersection improvements to clean up the illegal parking. And so it was also good in forging relationships with people from those departments who said that, you know, when things come up to just reach out to them directly. So
thank you, commissioners. And let me just say for people who are listening tonight that Commissioner Lucarelli has been relentless in his in his advocacy for improving that space. And so I congratulate you, Commissioner, on finally getting people to listen and to do something about it. So thanks to you both for doing that.
And I concur with everything Commissioner Lucarelli said. And also the council member did mention it's one thing for us to meet up as a group every few months, but I think there will be an effort to make it more consistent for every few weeks, as you know, as time and our schedules permit. So
excellent. Thank you. We'll now open up the floor to community comments. If anyone wants to speak who's physically here, please use the microphone. Otherwise, people can comment online. You're able to comment on any of the topics that we discussed tonight or anything else you'd like to bring up. We would ask that you keep your comments to under 2 minutes to make sure that everybody who wants to speak has an opportunity to do so. I will just tap gently on the microphone after your 2 minutes is up, just so you know. We will start. I see somebody online. I see neighbor Chandler. You are up first.
Yes, thank you very much. I would like to inquire about the lighting on the 5300 block of 3rd Street at the Triangle. It seems that the lights were out. I called 311 and they replaced one of the bulbs, I believe, but it's not as bright as it used to be. And the light that was at 3rd and Ingraham is either out or has been removed. So do you know anything about changing in the lighting at the Triangle Park or the 5300 block of 3rd Street? It's very dark now. It used to be very bright, but it's no longer.
I know the park that you're speaking of. I live right around the corner from there. I don't know that there have been any intentional changes to the lighting. In fact, I know there's been lighting replacement in the city, but it's supposed to make things brighter. So what I can do is certainly follow up with DDOT about that and see what's going on with the lighting there and why it's so dark. So thank you for raising that.
you know, I wonder if it was from a motor vehicle crash.
It could have been. And so what I can do is I can look into that for you. And if you'd like to share I don't know if you'd like to privately message your email to either any of the commissioners who are online tonight, I can follow up with you, or you can email me personally at 4d08@anc.dc.gov, and I'll be happy to get back to you. Next up.
Testing.
There you go.
My name is Kathy Elliott and I live in 4D05, and I'd like to add an item to old business because I need further clarification. I'm responding to the application to add rooms to 301 Delafield Place Northwest and have concerns about it. And it's been almost 30 days and I have reached out to my commissioner both telephonically and via email and have not received a response to date. This lack of response is frustrating and concerning, especially considering the urgency of the matter at hand. And my next point is regarding DPW. I have called regarding our alley on numerous occasions, and I did see the pool of people coming through to cleaning the alley this particular day. So I perused my alley to see what they had done. So they did clean up, but there was I specifically said there was a lot of glass in the alley. As of today, that glass is still there. One of the properties in the alley still has trash bins out in the alley, and the trash bins are always overflowing. So I took a picture tonight, and there are several trash bags, and front of this one particular property where the trash bags are in front of the trash can, blocking the alley. You can't even drive down that alley right now because of this. So those are my concerns. And I don't know if you have questions for me, but that's what I wanted to present to you.
Thank you for sharing. To go back to your 301 Delafield question, the last meeting that we had a question about a zoning variance for the property. But I understand that there were some other issues related to the property, I think particularly with pollution maybe or trash. And I think that Commissioner Morensic was going to follow up with the property owners separately because that wasn't what we were voting on. We were voting specifically on a construction issue. Am I remembering that correctly? So I'm not sure if your concerns were related specifically to the construction question or whether it was about these other issues related to the property.
There are other issues.
Okay. So in that
so-
case, I think maybe Commissioner Morensic, are you still planning to work through some of those issues with 301 Delafield?
Yes, absolutely. I'm so sorry if I missed your communication. Let's connect. Remind me your name one more time. I'm gonna write it down right here.
It's Kathy with a K. Last name is Elliott. 2 L's, 2 T's in Elliott.
All
We're
right.
on our-
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was on the virtual meeting last month.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Elliott. And hopefully we can get those issues resolved for you.
Thank
We'll
you
try.
for your time.
Sure, of course. Next up, do we have anyone else online? I can't quite see from here.
Uptown Community Initiative.
Uptown Community.
Hi, good evening, commissioners and neighbors. I'm calling on behalf of Petworth Main Street and Uptown Main Street to remind everybody that Petworth Porch Fest is coming this spring on Saturday, the 27th of April. If it rains, it will be the next day. And this time we are extending it to include Brightwood Park, which will have a few porches, but also a special area, special 4 bands will play on the 700 block of Kennedy Street. If people want to be on that block, everybody knows where Everyday Sunday is. That is where 4 bands will play, as well as other porches close by. And then the main stage is from 5 p.m. until 9 p.m. with some of DC's best bands, but that will be at the Petworth Rec Center. And all of this is free that day. So we will check out the website, petworthporchfest.org. The final schedule is coming out probably this weekend so that you can start planning your route. And hopefully you will be around and we'll get a beautiful day and you'll join us. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you for the work that you do for our community. Other questions or comments from anyone in the community? Is there anyone else online? I'm not able to see. No. It looks like there is a comment from Randy Thorpe from DPW related to Ms. Elliott. Is it related to Ms. Elliott's question? And it looks like she's asking you if you could email her the pictures directly of the glass that you're talking about. Ms. Thorpe, are you able to share your email with us one more time, just so we can pass it along?
Sure. It's Randy, RANDI .Thorpe, T as in Tom, HORP as in Paul, E at dc.gov. And if you can just mail me the address of where those trash bags that were mentioned in front of the residence, that address, and also the address of the alley where the glass was left behind. And I will get that taken care of.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
No problem.
Any other questions or comments from the community?
There was one other comment in the chat that the 4D Citizens Advisory Council will be meeting tomorrow at 7 p.m. at MPD's 4D headquarters.
Thank you so much. And I see a hand, or I thought I saw a hand raised. Okay, not so much. Mr. Schwartz.
Yeah, I circulated a sign-up sheet for anybody who wants more information or would like to be involved in some canvassing and getting information out on what's going on with their neighbors and the exposure to lead and water and how they can protect themselves. Thanks.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Any other last questions or comments from the community? Okay. Hearing none, we will move on to votes. First, we have a vote on the Clean Hands resolution that was originally proposed by Commissioner Abell. I move to adopt the motion. Can I have a second?
Second.
Commissioners, when I call your name, please say aye if you approve the motion, or nay if you do not. Commissioner Pinckney is not here. Commissioner Abell,
Yes.
Commissioner Lucarelli,
Aye.
Commissioner Corniotis,
Aye.
Commissioner Morenzik,
Aye.
Commissioner George,
Aye.
Commissioner Weigel,
Aye.
and I'm also an aye. The motion carries. Next up, we have BZA application number 21102. I move to approve the application
Second.
for the exception.
Second.
Commissioners, when I call your name, please say aye if you approve. Commissioner Pinckney is not here. Commissioner Abell,
Strong aye.
Commissioner Lucarelli,
So moved.
Commissioner Corniotis,
Aye.
Commissioner Morenzik,
Aye.
Commissioner George,
Aye.
Commissioner Weigel,
Aye.
and I'm also an aye. The motion carries and is approved. Having no other business before the commission this evening, the commission is hereby adjourned. Thank you all for joining us, and we will see you hopefully all next month.
Yeah.
Good night, everybody.
Very anticlimactic.